Hello and welcome to another Super 7 retro style Masters of the Universe figure review. And in the original line there were plenty of Skeletor figures, all sorts of different variants like Dragon Blaster and Battle Armor. But the one Skeletor we never got was the Filmation version, and we finally have him. So like the She-Ra figure and the He-Man figure, he comes on a card that is identical to the original style, and it includes the little yellow, as seen on TV, bubble just to make it clear that this is the Filmation version of Skeletor. But if you are wanting to add these retro style figures to your original figure collection, if you're lucky enough to have some of the originals still on card, then they will go beautifully together. They're the same size, peg hole is in the same spot, the bubble, almost the exact same shape, very similar. And I just love the fact that they have brought back the original card art too, and it's not a mini comic in behind. As I found out in the He-Man review, but it looks like a mini comic, so the original one does have a mini comic in behind there, and the new one has a piece of artwork, card art, in behind there, and the Super 7 logo in the bottom right corner. And want to give a shout out to Big Bad Toy Store if you're thinking of picking up this figure, or the other retro figures, or an assortment of other new Masters of the Universe figures, different collectibles. Check out BigBadToysTore.com. And before we take a look at the figure, here's a look at the card art featuring Skeletor in front of Snake Mountain, and the Havoc Staff is in the middle of casting a dastardly spell. And on the back, we also have the From Toy to Toon images, the original figure, and a couple of Filmation Skeletor images. And here he is, the evil Lord of Destruction Skeletor. And he looks fantastic. Same construction as the original vintage style He-Man figures. I remember these types of arms. The original figures always had one gripping hand and one hand that was open, which was good for smacking, and this Skeletor, like the other retro figures, does have smacking power. He's got a really nice spring in his waist too. You might find this little thing that goes around his waist sometimes gets in the way, so you just have to make sure that it's not impeding. It might slow him down a little bit. But he's got the same articulation as the He-Man, the She-Ra figures, all the other retro style figures. Another thing that impedes a little bit, actually, is the hood. So this hood right here, it comes down, droops down a little bit, and it does tend to rub a little bit on his harness right here. So his head doesn't move quite as freely as the other figures, but for me that's a perfectly fine trade-off because it looks fantastic, and it's not like you really need to move his head all the way 360. And the harness is similar, again, to the original Skeletor harness, complete with these little things on the sides and the cross bones on the chest. This is really cool. I like how closely they've adhered to the original figure, because I know that original one very, very well. And I just love that the construction, the look of it is so similar, but it's still got that new Filmation look to it. And the legs are also like the He-Man figure. You get this full rotation, but as I've said before, I'm going to be very careful with these guys because they aren't as durable as the original rubber, and they also move in and out, but it feels really stiff, and I don't want to be forcing any of that. But the huge positive of not having the rubber legs anymore is this: he stands incredibly well, and those original figures had a lot of problems before with being able to stand. They tended to do this. Their legs came on the inside like that, and you could not keep them out like that. They would just want to keep going back like that. So I really, since these are collector's items for me, display pieces, I really like being able to stand them up. So he does come with a couple of accessories. One of the coolest ones is the Havoc staff. And the original He-Man accessories were usually just one color. One of the exceptions was He-Man's shield, which had orange along the side of it, orange paper inserted. So this is really cool that they have actually included, this looks like 2 pieces that come together, but I believe this part is painted. Whether it's painted or cast in this color, it's beautiful. It's a really nice sculpt on it, and the rest of the staff too looks very similar to Skeletor's original Havoc staff, but having it in 2 different colors now, and the staff part is not purple like the rest of Skeletor's getup. Having it be, I think it's almost a pink, just adds a little bit more color to him. And he also comes with 2 versions of his Sword of Darkness power sword. One of them is a full sword, just like He-Man. So if you don't want to go with the 2 halves connecting, you can give him one of these swords, and it has one of these things right here in order to help his open hand grip the sword. You actually hear a little bit of a click when you stick it in there, and it's secure. The Havoc staff, not so much like the original figures. It's secure in there enough to hold him, but if you really whip him around, you're gonna knock the Havoc staff out, but this sword is not coming out, so that's really nicely designed. And it's a purple version of He-Man's sword, so the exact same look to it, just a different color. And one of my favorite gimmicks of the original line, this right here is one of the original, or commemorative I should say, He-Man power swords. And Skeletor came with a purple version, He-Man came with a gray version, which had holes and this round peg, and then Skeletor's came with pegs and a hole here, and they would piece together to form a complete power sword. And they never really stuck together well back in the day. This commemorative version wasn't sticking together very well either, so I had to add a little bit of just a drop of crazy glue onto there to make that a little more snug. So I was very excited about getting to do this same gimmick with these new retro swords. So I had my He-Man sword, half sword, all ready to go, and when I opened up this Skeletor, I discovered that it included 2 full power swords. So I was looking at it for quite some time and trying to figure out, is it 2 of them stuck together? What's going on here? But it's 2 full power swords that were included with mine. So I know that there have been some issues with Super7, just like this, some accessories being duplicates or missing. But I gotta tell you, from my experience with them, I sent them off an email and I explained to them my half power sword was missing. Rudy got right back to me, and I like that I actually get a response from someone with a name instead of just something that seems like a corporate form letter. And they sent me out the proper half Skeletor power sword immediately. And then Jose followed up with confirmation that it had been shipped and tracking information. So I don't think it's a big deal to make a mistake. I think it's important that when a mistake is made, how that mistake is remedied. And for their part, Super7 did an awesome job correcting the mistake. So now I've got the 2 halves of the power sword, and stick them together, and they actually hold together really well. Incredibly well. Much better than the original, to be honest. So that is an important gimmick brought over from the original figures, and a big thank you to Super7 for taking care of that problem so swiftly. and smoothly. Really appreciate that. So if you ever have any issues with your Super 7 items, just email them. You'll find their contact information on their website. Provide your order number, because you have to prove that you actually purchased this stuff. Otherwise, lots of people who haven't made purchases will be claiming that they're missing things of items they never actually purchased. But they'll help you out. And so we've got the complete power sword here, and Skeletor can now have the power as well. And here's a side-by-side with the original Skeletor, commemorative version in this case. And you can see that the purples on the original one are just a bit darker. And also the blue on the Super 7 Filmation Skeletor is a little more vibrant, a little brighter. The Havoc Staff is the same dark purple as used on the rest of Skeletor's accessories. This one is so nice, the animated one. It looks like the base is a new base too. The circular parts seem smaller on the new one than on the older one, and it's just a bit longer on the animated one. So from ball to circular parts, the animated one is a little longer, and then there's the Havoc Staff. So the animated one is just a little bit longer, and since it's Filmation style, you can see here the sword doesn't want to stay in the original one all that well, and the original one doesn't stand all that well either, as usual. Was never meant to. He was meant to be smashed and bashed, and that's fine. But the new one is more intended for a retro-looking, nostalgic-feeling display piece, and there is not as much detail in the animated one. You can see here there's some detailing on the front here, which kind of looks like a bat. It's almost horde-like on the original. It's completely missing from the Super 7 one. The shoulder parts on the original one are smaller, thinner. On the animated one, the crossbones are smaller on the animated one. And also on the skirt part, it's missing whatever this design is here, and then these little, it's missing 2 of these little extra things on the end. So this one, it does a really nice job, the animated one. Nice job of having less detail, but still seeming to be quite detailed. Not too bare bones. And then you can take a closer look at the heads here. And this one is very spooky. As someone once said, the man has no face. Very, very creepy looking. Very nice. It's cool that he's based on the cartoon, but he's still really spooky looking. And a little 360 here. One of the things that I just noticed is the original one has these little ridges on the top and bottom of his forearms, which are missing from the Super 7. Look about the same from the back. And also, the final little difference is the feet. The original one has these little kind of claw feet, and the new one is just wearing like nice looking boots, almost like Star Trek Captain boots. And he looks fantastic on Panther as well. They go really nicely together. The legs, much like the He-Man Super 7 version, the legs let him sit on Panther a little more sturdy. Skeletor, the original one, was always a little sturdier than He-Man because of this skirt. But with these legs that are rigid now instead of rubber that bends all the way, all over the place, you can see he is so much more sturdy on this thing now. He won't be tipping over and falling over. So that's Super 7's Filmation version of Skeletor. Really happy to see all of these classic characters being released with their animated forms by Super7, and I hope it's a trend that continues with toy companies, because this mentality of having to have a new cartoon and a new movie in order to promote a toy line, I don't think it's necessary. I think you can just re-release the old cartoon and just keep releasing stuff from the vintage classic cartoons. A lot of people own this stuff already, the DVD sets, and give them a reason to open it up and watch it again and enjoy it. I don't think it's the media they need to be adding to. Maybe they can do new box sets, different versions of the complete series for people who don't own them or wouldn't mind a new version, or who have worn out the original versions like I'm doing with all of my DVDs. But I don't think it's necessary to keep rebooting these things. I really love stuff like this. That's just a new version of an old character, untouched, unmodified, unreimagined. So I'm really digging these. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you have a question or comment, feel free to leave a comment below. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerdmaste!